Well, listen, we have had such wonderful tributes this week to your father from his friends and associates, so I appreciate being able to hear yours this morning, and thank you for sharing some time with me today.
My pleasure.
I was mentioning St. Patrick's and how you're heading back there for this second day, and I was thinking about St. Patrick's, Ben, an Irish church, the place where you were married. This is a place with strong connections to you and to your family, and I'm wondering, first of all, what it's meant to be back in this place at this time.
It's meant the world, and I think my brother Nick actually had his confirmation at St. Patrick's as well. So we have deep ties to that church. They have been wonderful, and to see all the well-wishers on a very cold day here in Montreal. You can expect cold weather in March in Montreal, and so many of them lined up and waited outside for them to come in and spend a moment with us to tell us what my dad meant to them, and to see my dad's casket with his big smiling face on the picture just to the left. These are really helpful signposts on sort of the journey of grief that we're all on.
It has been extraordinary, to say the least, and we're looking at some of those scenes from yesterday. Tomorrow, though, of course, you move to Notre Dame for the state funeral, and I'm wondering what you're anticipating.
Well, I think it's going to be an emotional day. I wouldn't be surprised if it was peppered with some jokes. My dad's sense of humor is legendary, and I really do hope that those who come and speak about the man that he was don't forget that he loved a good joke. And I think it'll be helpful for those of us who are going to be going through some pretty deep emotional struggles tomorrow. I always love a good joke that can cut through the sadness. And but there will be music for sure, a lot of music. Dad loved singing, and he loved listening to music, and I'm sure that's going to play a very big part tomorrow as well.
You know, I want to come back to those two very themes in a moment or two. In fact, the tenors are joining me later this morning, Ben, and I know they'll be performing at the funeral. We'll talk about that. But just in terms of what we've seen thus far this week, and we'll see tomorrow, how much of it has been your father's express wishes?
Dad had plans for this, but he always spoke in broad strokes. And so what you're witnessing is the hard work of so many people who worked with my father, who answered the call when we said, we need help putting this thing together. There have been dozens of former staffers and friends and colleagues who've been working behind the scenes. And a lot of it is decisions made by the people who knew him and cared for him the most. And that begins and ends with my mother. Mm-hmm. Without her, we're not standing there. Without her, my father didn't achieve what he achieved. Without her, he didn't have the friends that he made. Yeah, he wouldn't have had us, his kids. I believe there's a story that he might have wanted to stop at one kid. And my mom said she changed those plans right quick. And so we are, without her, we don't have any of this. We don't have the dad that we had, and Canada doesn't have the prime minister they had.
You can't help but admire the grace and strength that she has shown over this week in leading you in the lying in state and lying in repose. How is your mom, Ben?
She's good. Last night we had a celebration of the other Mila's birthday, my brother's 8-year-old daughter. It was her birthday yesterday, and so my mother invited all the grandkids over last night for a pizza party. And I believe she's filling the quiet time with the love and the loud voices of 16 grandkids. And we are enjoying every moment with her. I have to assume that she's having some really tough times, but she's not showing it. And that is a testament to who she's always been.
Yes.
She was my dad. I don't believe my dad ever gave a speech in which he didn't signal how important she was to him and to the work he did and the person he was. And so I want to make sure that I echo that. And I know that will be a theme tomorrow during the funeral.
I'm sure in the eulogy your sister will be delivering. She's the one who will represent the family. And do you know what she's planning to say, Ben? Is she keeping it from her brothers, or do you have an idea of the themes that she'll be addressing and sharing with the people in the Basilica? capturing what it was like to have Brian Mulroney as father?
Well, she has shared it with me, but it's not my place to share it beyond that. I can tell you that upon hearing it, I was a pool of tears on the floor. So I really do hope there is no camera on me when she's reading. But it is quintessentially Caroline. It is thoughtful. It is honest. It's personal, and it captures him in a way that only she can capture him. And I'm so proud that she is the person representing the family tomorrow.
Going to be beautiful. We've seen her, of course, and her husband yesterday, and one of her children in that receiving line as the dignitaries arrived yesterday. I'm going to play, as we're talking, Ben, a little bit of video, because I don't know how it felt for you, but for me, as I watched, and we had special live coverage, which I was privileged to host, the most poignant moment was seeing Lucien Bouchard arrive at that church yesterday and walk down the church aisle to speak with your family, to pay his respects at your father's casket. Given the history and the relations between the two, what did you think? What was the impact of his being there on you?
Well, I know that the rift between them caused him great consternation and great pain. It was a deep wound. I'm not saying anything people don't already know. And I think that the fact that they were able to reconcile completely, I might add, prior to his passing, I know that closed a wound that hurt him deeply. So I know that having him there would have meant a lot to my father. He's not somebody who likes to carry grudges. He's not. He's always somebody who he's been burned by people and many times and would find a way to bring them back into the fold. And sometimes we would say, why would you do that when this person did X, Y, or Z? But that was the person he was. And in the case of Monsieur Bouchard, I think it was tougher to overcome. So the fact that they were able to do it, and the fact that they were able to do it before he passed, I know meant a great deal to him.
It clearly did to Monsieur Bouchard as well, as he spoke afterwards, after having left that church. So you're giving us some insight into some of the things that you've learned from people as you've had those moments privately with them in the church and then in Ottawa, of course. And your brother Mark has also talked about how the whole family's learned things about your dad that you didn't even know before, and how much he would have loved those stories too. But I've been hearing about the radio special that you've put together for tomorrow on Chorus Radio, a national special where you're talking to people again about your father and learning more things about him. And it seems to me, as you've talked to people, former presidents Bush and Clinton and Michael Bublé, so much of this has to do again with music and his singing. It seems like he was always singing, Ben.
That's right. Yeah, there's a 1 hour version of the special that's airing today at 3 p.m. and then, I think it's 5 p.m. today. And then the 2 hour special is airing tomorrow at 3. And, he always loved singing, but the older he got, and especially when he got out of politics, if there was a piano in a room and there was somebody who could play it, he would be front and center singing something. And it gave him such joy. And the look on his face when he sang made him so happy. And a few years ago, I think, knowing that everyone's time comes to an end, he rented out a studio, got some musicians in, and laid down 18 songs that he put onto a CD so that his grandkids could have it forever. And that was sort of the genesis of this idea for a special. I said, wouldn't it be great if Canadians could hear some of the stories that only a few people know because they got to be with him behind closed doors. They got to be with him in private. They got to be with him at personal celebrations. And so I put the call out, and everyone that I asked said yes to sharing personal, more intimate stories than you might otherwise hear. And so we as a family are very proud that we were able to put this special together. And I hope Canadians enjoy it. I hope it helps them if they are going through a loss. I hope it helps them heal. I know it certainly helped me.
Well, it sounds beautiful from the excerpts that I've heard and heard about. To hear two former presidents talk about your dad singing is quite beautiful. You know, you mentioned that renting out that studio. It leads me into something else I'd like to ask you about. Did he prepare you as a family for this moment, the inevitability of life's coming to an end? Such a central figure in your worlds, and he would have known what a void this will leave in your lives. Did you discuss it as a family? Did he prepare you for this?
Well, I think those things are probably separate. Did we discuss it? Yes. Did he prepare us for us? No. I couldn't be prepared for this. We knew Dad had a number of fights with illness. He seemed to knock them all out of the park, and so my assumption was that this was just another thing that he was going to beat. We were slowly socialized the idea that this was something he was not going to beat, and so we as a family had to make peace with that in short order. But then we've had this long goodbye. He passed away just over 3 weeks ago, and the funeral is tomorrow. That's a long time to say goodbye. And we've had a number of, there's a lot of procedure, a lot of process, and with a former prime minister, pomp and circumstance. And with each one of these events, I think it has helped us prepare for the day where he will no longer be with us. He's still with us because we're still talking about him so much. He's omnipresent. And so, yes, did we talk about it? Yes. Were we ready? Absolutely not.
No. And you've talked about how with all of those events and really the energy that surrounded all the formality, you haven't really had a time to have quiet time to think about the loss and what it means. When do you think it will come in your life? When do you think you'll feel that loss most and maybe acutely?
I'm going to feel it when I have something really positive in my life I want to share. He was always the first phone call because he was our champion. And so if something good was happening in my life and I called him, he would be happier than I was. I was looking forward to spending my 48th birthday with him, which was on March 9th. We were supposed to be down in Florida, and that clearly didn't happen. And he was always the first person to call me on my birthday to remind me about the day I was born and how I was born with a part in my hair. And I was sad that I wasn't going to get that. However, I had been listening to that CD that I told you about on repeat in the days prior to his death. And so when I woke up that morning on March 9th, one of his songs was playing in my head. And so I chose to view that as him still being the first voice I heard on my birthday. And that gave me a sense of real joy. And I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to look for those signs. I'm going to look for those ways to keep including him in my life. I'm going to keep my family close, tell my mother I love her every day. Those are the things he would have wanted. And I think that's how I'm going to keep the feeling that he's with me in my heart.
Ben, thank you. Thank you for being so generous with your thoughts and those remembrances. It's been a real honor, I have to say, personally, to cover these events of this week and to talk about your dad. So how pleased I am to talk to you, too. Thank you.
Heather, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. The whole family appreciates it.
I wish you and your family the very best tomorrow as well. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks. Bye-bye.